Faithkeepers is a documentary produced by an Israeli organization called the Clarion Project about Christian persecution in the Middle East. Given the dire circumstances of the Christians in Afrin, it's a very timely and important movie. Earlier, I spoke with filmmaker Paula Kweskin and asked her why she made the film. Well, Paula, it's great to be with you here in our CBN studio.
Thank you.
Faithkeepers is a documentary you've done. Why did you do this? Why did you produce it and write it?
It's really been an incredible journey making this film, Faithkeepers. A few years ago, I would say about 3 years ago, I met an incredible woman, Juliana Taimoorazy. She actually was in my previous film, Honor Diaries, and she's an Iraqi Christian woman who grew up in Iran. And she told me about the plight of her people, the Christian people in the Middle East. Even though I'm a human rights attorney by training, it's an issue I had really never heard about. I didn't realize just how persecuted the Christians are in the Middle East. And learning about her story, the story of Christians in Iraq and in Syria and all over the Middle East, it really woke me up to this idea that we need to do more for Christians in the Middle East, and that it's a horrific human rights abuse what's going on today.
And as you did the movie, what did you find out? What did you discover?
Actually, I mean, we started the film, we started shooting and producing the film before the rise of ISIS. And so as we were filming, that's when ISIS came on the scene. So whereas things for Christians were bad before ISIS, they took a horrific turn for the worse when ISIS appeared. And so I think just the absolute critical nature of this issue is something that I began to realize more and more. We're talking about the threat of extinction of Christians in the Middle East.
And that was something you were unaware of.
Oh, absolutely. I had no idea. I mean, I knew that Christians were an integral part of this region, the Middle East. I knew they'd been here for thousands of years, but I had no idea just how precarious their situation is. And I think that's why it's so important that we made this film. We want to educate people and let them know about the critical nature of the situation of Christians and other minorities in the Middle East.
A recent report came out about the plight of Christians, or what Christians are experiencing here in the Middle East. What does that report say?
Aid to the Church in Need came out with a report that said that now being a Christian is worse than at any time in history. And I just find that startling, that to be a Christian is more dangerous than any time in history. And we see that happening all over the world. We've seen horrific bombings at churches in Egypt, in Pakistan, and all over the Middle East. And I just want the church to really wake up and hear the cry of their brothers and sisters all over the world and really take action. Moreover, what the experts are saying is that the extinction of Christians in Syria and Iraq is imminent. And so even though there are gains that have been made, unless there's a serious rebuilding effort and unless there's aid that gets to these communities, I'm afraid they're not going to survive.
You're a Jewish woman. You did this about Christians.
Yeah.
What makes you really passionate about this?
Like I said, I'm a human rights lawyer, and I really believe in the dignity of all people and the need to protect their rights. Certainly, I think just the Jewish experience, having gone through the Holocaust and several persecutions throughout history, I believe that it makes us a bit more sensitive to these issues. And what's happened to Christians is a genocide. And I wish people would use that word more. I wish people would understand just the severity of this issue.
Sometimes, at least I feel, there's a disconnect between what our brothers and sisters are experiencing here in the Middle East and the church in the West. Do you feel the same?
I do, and it's a bit unfortunate because I'll speak sometimes to pastors and lay leaders in the U.S. and sometimes they'll say, well, you know, it's a bit of a downer. We don't really want to bring this issue into the church, or, well, we don't really understand how this affects us. And I hope that they start to understand just how important this issue is. And even if something's a downer, it doesn't mean that the church shouldn't know about it. And the evangelical community in the U.S. did a tremendous job with human trafficking. They took that issue and elevated it, and I want them to do the same with this issue as well.
And do you see any difference that in the Obama administration for 8 years, and they were there when ISIS rose up, and now in the Trump administration?
I have seen some positive shifts. I know that Vice President Pence has made some really powerful remarks about this, and I think the State Department is a little bit more open to the issue. What I've heard on the ground is that all these promises of aid really need to get delivered. So, I mean, I would encourage viewers, you call your representative. It really does make a difference. Just make a phone call and say, hey, you know, we support aid going to Christian communities in the Middle East.
If people are interested in the documentary, how can they find it? How can they see it?
Yeah, so people should go to faithkeepersmovie.com, and we're doing screenings in churches all over the country, and you can sign up to host a screening in your church and pray for the communities and get involved, and we've got tons of information on the website, so faithkeepersmovie.com.
And where do you want to take this from here?
You know, we released the film late last year, and I really just want to continue to see it be a slow burn. I mean, a lot of times in Hollywood, movies come out, they're out for a couple months. I want this movie to be out for the next year, where communities are showing the film, where we're building up and up, that we continue to bring this film to the decision makers and leaders and just hear from communities. So I think we're just at the beginning of this film, and I'm excited to be able to promote it.
Well, Paula, kol hakavod, as they say here in Israel, with much respect, great job on this film, and I hope it continues to be spreading around the church and the world.
Thank you.